Up next, we are going to go over the USGS's priorities. They are unable to give their presentation in person, so we have a recorded presentation. But before I do that, there are going to be two presentations. The first one is from Mindi Dalton. Because she's not here, I'm going to give you some background information. Mindi Dalton is the portfolio coordinator for the USGS Water Resources Availability Portfolio, which works with partners and stakeholders to improve our understanding of increasing demand and competition for limited water resources to ensure adequate water availability for both human and ecological needs. Now and into the future, through integrated research, model development, and assessments that advance the USGS's goal of supporting water resource management decision-making nationally, regionally, and locally. Her USGS career began as a hydrologist at the Georgia Water Science Center in 1999, and she still resides in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband, Brendan, her son, Patrick, and dogs, Rosie and Pete.
My name is Mindi Dalton, and I'm the portfolio coordinator for the USGS Water Resources Availability Portfolio. Sorry I can't be there in person this week. I'm disappointed I won't be able to hear more about the science being done on existing research projects that were funded last year by both USGS and the National Weather Service. But I am excited that I get to share more about my portfolio and its requirements, goals, and priorities that will shape future research needs. First, I'd like to provide some context for what is driving the research needs for the Water Resources Availability Portfolio, or WRAP. WRAP looks to fulfill USGS requirements from the Secure Water Act, Section 9508, by investing in research, model development, and assessments to improve our understanding of water availability nationally. We do this by conducting integrated national and regional water availability assessments that are inclusive of quantity, quality, and use. We're also focusing on research to improve water budget estimation through development of models for water use. We're developing an integrated capacity to evaluate trends in water availability and are researching techniques to incorporate socioeconomics, including risk and vulnerability, into our assessments. I mentioned the Secure Water Act earlier, and I thought it would be helpful to provide some additional context about the requirements in Secure that are driving our research needs. Secure directs USGS to provide a routine assessment of water resources nationally, including the quantity of water available, the quality of water available, trends in water availability, and developing the ability to forecast water availability for a variety of future uses. We are currently planning two major products that will meet the needs of the requirements of Secure. The first is a 5-year report, which will summarize status, trends, and long-term projections of water availability as described earlier. These reports will initially be released in phases. The first version will be published in 2024 and will include current status and historical assessments from the years 2000 to 2020. It will also become the new outlet for our water use compilation and will release monthly water use for the same time period, 2000 to 2020, for thermoelectric, public supply, and irrigation uses. Together, these make up about 90% of water use nationally. Version 2 will be released in 2026 and will include trends in water availability. And then beginning in 2030 and every 5 years after, this report will be released and will include status, trends, and projections of water availability, as well as an evaluation of the factors that are driving change. The second major product is currently in planning, the National Water Census. This was envisioned to be an online delivery of water availability information, which will eventually feed development of the 5-year national assessment reports. More information about the National Water Census will be released as planning is completed. There are other resources that USGS has used to inform WRAP research priorities. These include a National Academies review of the USGS water use program in 2002, which recommended an applied approach to estimating water use with a focus on scientific integration of quantity, quality, and use to be able to better understand human impacts on water availability. In 2013, the USGS Water Mission Area published a science strategy with 8 primary goals. Of these, 5 are directly related to RAP, with a focus on improved model capacity, integration of quantity, quality, and use in our assessments, and improving delivery of data, tools, and information to our partners and stakeholders. Finally, in 2018, the National Academies did a review of our research activities. This review led to the development of 5 priority questions for USGS that are relevant to research needs for RAP. These include improvements in quantifying the water cycle, developing integrated cross-cutting water models, incorporating human decision-making, understanding the impacts of hazards on water availability, and wrapping it all in the context of risk and vulnerability to future water availability across a variety of economic sectors. There's a considerable amount of consistency between the requirements laid out in CIROH, through the Water Mission Area Strategic Plan, and between the 2 National Academy reviews. This tells me that there is wide acceptance and recognition of the issues and recommendations provided for critical water resource management. It also tells me that no one has been successful in addressing these issues and recommendations yet. In order to achieve the requirements of the Secure Water Act, as well as the other recommendations or requirements provided through legislation, by the National Academies, and through our own internal strategic planning, the Water Mission Area has developed a strategy for improving our ability to assess and predict water availability for both human and ecological uses. The foundational capacity for this improvement is water use reporting through models. We're also focused on improving our assessments through the integration of quantity and quality, recognizing that often water may be available, but not of a quality appropriate for an intended use. This work will rely on improved water prediction capabilities for success. Where we have typically produced models and assessments in silos, we are now focused on integrating our models and model development, testing, and evaluation to support assessments and other water prediction needs within USGS. How about other factors like the impact of climate-driven extreme events such as drought or wildfire? Or how socioeconomic decision-making impacts or influences water availability? We need to include the capacity to understand how distinct events impact water quantity and quality, or the demand associated with a specific use, and include that in our assessments and predictions. We also need to understand how changing climate and land use are impacting water availability, as well as their associated trends, in support of effective resource management and planning. And we develop the capacity to produce short-term, mid-term, and long-term projections that our stakeholders can use to make decisions about water resource management. Finally, we need to be able to deliver these tools, assessments, and forecasts in a way that is useful to resource managers and the water resource decisions they make. We need improved databases that can store our traditional data products, as well as new data types. We need to be able to deliver our assessments and predictions to a variety of users, from a congressional staffer to a water resource manager, to a modeler, and to our parents or neighbors, in a way that conveys a consistent and simple message, while also providing the framework for accessing the underlying data and tools used to make the assessments or predictions. This strategy is complex and requires integration across all of the Water Mission Area. So in 2019, we developed a new portfolio structure for both data and research and assessments to help support the planning and execution to meet this challenge. You've likely not seen this slide before, and I won't spend much time talking about the programs generally here. Instead, I will talk about each program shortly and will provide some additional details on program priorities. With this slide, I'd like to take a moment to highlight that we've intentionally developed this portfolio structure in an integrated way that requires planning, input, and execution from each program for the Water Mission Area to be successful in improving water availability assessments and prediction. That includes coordination and collaboration between both the Observing Systems portfolio and the Availability portfolio. Within RAP, there are 3 sub-portfolios. the high impact hydrologic research subportfolio, which supports research in support of effective management of the nation's water challenges, the water prediction and information delivery subportfolio, which supports the development of enterprise models and infrastructure in support of assessments, and the National Water Census, which supports the development of tools and assessments that support resource managers in decision-making. Our research tools and products are delivering these assessments with a focus on these primary indicators of water availability. Water quantity has prioritized the traditional water budget components along with reservoir storage. Water quality is prioritizing surface water salinity, nutrients, sediment, and temperature, along with groundwater salinity and nutrients. Water use will focus on the 8 categories of use that USGS has traditionally reported. Those are public supply, irrigation, thermoelectric, domestic self-supplied, industrial, mining, livestock, and aquaculture. And EcoFlows will focus on indicators of fish community health. There are other drivers that influence water availability, specifically the impacts of extreme events. USGS is currently investing in research to develop the capacity to predict water quality impacts of wildfire and hurricanes to water availability, as well as the capacity to predict the onset, duration, and severity of drought. The high impact hydrologic research subportfolio is focused on foundational research in support of effective management of the nation's water resources. Water quality processes is primarily focused on research to improve integration of water quality components into models and assessments. Water budget does the same for the water cycle. Water availability impacts of extreme events, or WAIE, is developing the capacity to integrate impacts from extreme events like wildfire and hurricanes into our assessments. And the Socioeconomic Drivers Program brings the human dimension of decision-making into our assessments in terms of how decision-making affects or is affected by water availability. Our water prediction and information delivery subportfolio supports the development of models and infrastructure used in our assessments. In WRAP, that is done primarily through the Integrated Water Prediction Program, which is focused on development, testing, and evaluation of an enterprise capacity integrated modeling framework. Finally, we have the National Water Census subportfolio, which seeks to systematically provide information that supports improved resource management across economic sectors. There are 4 programs in the subportfolio, and each provide critical tools that resource managers can use in decision-making. The Water Use Program supports data collection and model development to improve reporting across 8 categories of use. EcoFlows supports development of data tools and information used to assess stream health. Drought is developing the capability to forecast the onset and duration of drought through improved understanding of complex interactions that determine drought and drought effects. They also are developing robust models to predict drought risk and vulnerability for planning and mitigation purposes. And then we have IWAS, or what we call the Great Integrator. IWAS is responsible for bringing it all together to provide consistent assessments, forecasts, and trends of water availability for both human and ecological needs, and identify factors that limit water availability at multiple temporal and spatial scales. So here are our priorities across the portfolio for the next several years, all in support of delivering national assessments of water availability. WRAP investment will focus on development and integration of water quality models for both surface and groundwater, development of models to assess impacts of extreme events on water availability, development of models to incorporate ecological response, and development of an enterprise framework to integrate these models in support of our 5-year reports in the National Water Census. The next several slides will provide some examples of specific research needs in support of these priorities. In terms of water use, we're looking for support in development of our next 5 sets of models. That would be livestock, aquaculture, mining, industrial, and domestic self-supplied. This could be through things like remote sensing or data-driven approaches for model development. The Socioeconomic Drivers Program seeks to represent what decisions are made and how these decisions impact availability. Priorities here include improved understanding of contextual factors such as access to water, and development of metrics for model inclusion, including metrics for representing treaties, policies, or water rights. There are many opportunities for collaboration between the USGS, the National Weather Service, and CIROH in terms of water prediction. In fact, in FY23, there were several proposals jointly funded by USGS and NOAA in this theme. For FY24, USGS is looking for continued research support on hydroclimatic forcings, process model-informed design of data collection strategies for model testing and calibration, and evaluating techniques to simulate the effects of water use using USGS water use program products. For the drought program, we are focused on refinement and expansion of our drought prediction model. This model is showing a lot of promise, but can be improved by developing a better understanding of the spatial and temporal scales needed by water resource managers, expanding current drought prediction models to incorporate groundwater and lakes, and developing techniques to convey uncertainty associated with the data-driven approach used in model development to a broad audience of users. Finally, in support of improving our assessments, we are looking to create a more holistic view of water availability through the incorporation of coastal areas, incorporating national three-dimensional groundwater quantity and quality assessments, and improved inclusion of reservoir operations and their impacts on water availability, specifically in terms of water quality. I know I've covered a lot of material in this presentation. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I look forward to meeting everyone again in person soon and to seeing the ideas brought forward in the FY24 call for proposals. Thanks, and I hope you have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you for the presentation. We were going to take a few questions if there are any. Okay, there's a question in the back. Microphone still.
Hi, Mindy. This is Melissa Kenny from the University of Minnesota. It's great to have you joining us remotely. I have a question about the drought priorities. Are you working with NIDIS and CPC? And I'm curious if there's ways of potentially linking some of the projects that we already have going on related to probabilistic drought outlooks and visualizations related to that, to some of the work that USGS is doing.
Yeah, Melissa, we are actually working pretty closely with NIDIS on our drought prediction. 2.5 years ago or so, we embarked on a year-long journey with NIDIS in doing stakeholder engagement to learn more about what the resource management community needed in terms of products for drought prediction. They're working on a final report from that series of workshops currently, and we just recently had a meeting with NIDIS in August, I believe, maybe September, where we explored or started to explore some continued opportunities for collaboration. So I'd love to hear more about the work that you guys are doing specifically, and perhaps link you with some of the folks in our drought prediction project to see about potential collaboration.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I'm curious if you about the mentions of predictions of water availability and then outreach to stakeholders and use of predictions and management of resources. And I wonder if you could clarify a bit the time scales of the predictions, or this prediction idea, is it related to monthly, seasonal, decadal, future, under future climate? Is it a operational activity intended to inform real-time water resources management? So those are some of the questions that are coming up for me.
Sure. So currently, we are focused not on an operational in terms of near real time prediction. Our focus is more in the seasonal to annual and decadal, looking to inform resource management on those time steps.
Right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Mindy.
Sure. Thanks.